Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm currently filming on location. I'm on a business trip, and the area where I'm recording this has a bit of an echo, so my apologies at the beginning if there is a bit of an echo in the audio. Yesterday, Thursday, US time, TikTok's chief executive, Mr. Shou Chu, appeared before Congress for a tense hearing to discuss US lawmakers' concerns over his company and to head off a potential US ban. There has been growing criticism of the hugely popular short video app, with concerns over data privacy and the role of the algorithm in information dissemination. TikTok has also become a flashpoint in rising tensions between the US and China. As we have already seen, several governments and even some companies have restricted their employees from having the app on their phone. Lawmakers and the Biden administration in the US are exploring how to force ByteDance to sell its shares of the unit or face a ban in the US. Many of the interactions between Chu, a Harvard-educated Singaporean, and US lawmakers, from members of both parties on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, were adversarial. One lawmaker called the Chinese-owned app a tool of surveillance. Another expressed that TikTok is a, quote, cancer like fentanyl, another China export that causes addiction and death, end quote. The committee's chair expressed, quote, "You are here because the American people need to hear the truth about the threat TikTok poses to mental health and national security," end quote. Chu pushed back by asserting that the app is free from any manipulation by any government and independent from its Chinese owners, Beijing-based owner ByteDance Limited. Chu also pointed out that most of its board members are American. Chu could not unequivocally say, however, that no ByteDance employees have access to American data, expressing rather that he has, quote, seen no evidence of this, end quote. As a former lawyer myself, this particular articulation does raise eyebrows. "We aren't buying it," said one of the lawmakers. In another exchange, when asked, "Yes or no, do Chinese employees have access to US user data?" Chu replied, quote, "This is a complex subject," end quote. And in another awkward exchange, in response to a member's question about reports that TikTok spies on Americans, Chu responded, quote, "I don't think spying is the right way to describe it," end quote. Before the hearing, in a statement which likely did not help TikTok's chances on Capitol Hill, China's Commerce Ministry hit out at the US divestment demand, expressing, quote, "Forcing the sale of TikTok will seriously damage the confidence of investors from all over the world, including from China, to investing in the United States," end quote. In a remarkable move too, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the US, or CFIUS, gave a rare, unsolicited statement during the hearings, warning of the importance of data security. During the 5-hour hearing, the committee's chair concluded, quote, "TikTok has repeatedly chosen a path for more control, more surveillance, and more manipulation. Your platform should be banned," end quote. Several other lawmakers also called for a ban. Commentators are in agreement. The hearings did not go well for TikTok. Quote, "Today's hearing is the public, oftentimes grandstanding crystallization of a multi-month process of TikTok and its advisors trying to influence views on Capitol Hill. Their efforts clearly failed. And while I do not think many people expected the hearings to go well for TikTok and its charismatic CEO, they were much worse than I expected," end quote. What can the US do? The White House can try to ban the app inside the United States, possibly by cutting off its access to Apple's and Google's app stores. However, when the Trump administration tried to ban the app, the action was blocked by federal courts, which held that the executive branch did not have the power to unilaterally interfere with a private corporation in this way. As such, for TikTok to be banned, it would likely necessitate a law from Congress. There is also the question then, how would China react? Quote, If the PRC is now saying that divestment would not be allowed, then it is much more likely there will be attempts to force removal of the app from the app stores and to eventually shut it down in the US. Maybe PRC policymakers see some value in that, as they can push harder on the argument that the US is a hypocritical hegemon, that it is against free trade and free markets. I doubt they care about ByteDance TikTok shareholders. End quote. Meanwhile, one of the other fronts in the technology war is in semiconductors, which has already seen bans and restrictions imposed on China. However, as typically happens, holes in restrictions are being exploited. Chinese financial media outlet Yicai Global, which writes in English for an international audience, speaking to Nvidia's founder this week, writes that the US chip-making giant will lease the artificial intelligence supercomputers used to develop ChatGPT-like tech to Chinese consumers through Chinese cloud service providers that use specially tailored chips. In China, which is affected by a US ban on the export of graphic processing units, with chip-to-chip data transfer rates of under 600 gigabits per second, Nvidia has developed specially tailored chips, namely the A800 and H800. These will be used, the outlet explains, by the country's three biggest cloud service providers, Alibaba Group Holdings, Tencent Holdings, and Baidu, to provide system services. UK-based Reuters reported all the way back in November that Nvidia had designed the A800 that reduces some capabilities of the A100 in order to make the chip legal for export to China. Also, UK-based Financial Times, in an article called "Chinese AI Groups Use Cloud Services to Evade US Chip Export Controls," writes that the US export restrictions prompted the proliferation of state-backed computer clusters which stockpiled Nvidia chips and rented out access of the technology to blacklisted companies. One executive at a cloud service startup in Shenzhen told the outlet, for example, that they had, quote, seen demand for A100 chips surge from strange companies that masked their real identity behind shell companies, end quote. This week has been yet another turbulent one in China-US relations. Thursday evening, the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party held its second hearing, this one called "The Chinese Communist Party's Ongoing Uyghur Genocide." Okay, next up, fears of increasing infertility in China. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode of China Update, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and for anyone who can go that extra mile, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Okay, let's finish today's video with a report published this week by Chinese analysts at Caixin looking at the issue of infertility in China. The report finds that in recent months, several localities, from wealthy cities like Shanghai and Beijing to poorer provinces like Yunnan and Shanxi, have been calling on healthy men and college students to donate sperm to sperm banks. On the Chinese internet, the article observes, the drive to get more sperm donations triggered concerns of a shortfall in supply and rising male infertility rates. But the speculation also plays into a wider national anxiety over a population decline in the country, the first in 6 decades, that could lead to a continued decline in an already shrinking workforce and take a toll on the economy. Recent data from the Sperm Bank of the Reproductive and Genetic Hospital of CITIC Xiangya showed that the probability of qualified sperm from donors was only 17.7% in 2015, a third of what it had been in 2006. However, this is not evidence of declining male fertility, according to analysts. The Caixin article argues, quoting industry experts, that the decline in qualified semen, quote, can be attributed to poor habits of college students who make up the majority of sperm donors, and it may just be temporary. This doesn't directly indicate a decline in male sperm quality, end quote. The director of the Human Sperm Bank of Sichuan also spoke to the analysts, expressing that the bar for qualified sperm is set relatively high to begin with, so a lower qualified semen level doesn't necessarily mean infertility, though it is not a particularly positive trend nevertheless. Quote, As China's population ages and shrinks, and couples of childbearing age are less willing to have children, industry insiders said the primary role of sperm banks could be shifted from serving infertile couples to preserving the fertility of people. For example, freezing the sperm of healthy men who don't currently want to have children but are concerned about their declining fertility in the future. End quote. What are the factors that are affecting fertility then? Lack of sleep, smoking, drinking, poor nutrition, air pollution, work pressure, emotional pressure, and men putting off having children have all been suggested as key reasons. However, these are all parts of modern life, and as such suggest that the decrease in qualified semen, and thus potentially of fertility quality itself, may not be temporary. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a great Friday wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.